Hello everyone, this is Bangkok-Ian here. This is my first video response in more than 18 months, and it's a video response to Novabug, the 4 best racing games. Now this is incredibly difficult for me to whittle it down to 4 because I do like my racing games. Been playing them for 30 years, so I think the first one I played was that Night Driver arcade game where you just had the black and white dots and you had to try and stay on the road. That was brilliant. Since I saw that, been hooked on racing games. Pole Position, loads and loads of them through the years. And couldn't give you my top 4, but before that, there are some honourable mentions that I had to get out there first. Here we go. Firstly, we have F-Zero GX on the GameCube. Probably my favourite F-Zero game. I remember buying the original F-Zero. I had a US SNES when it first came out. I was a gobsmacked when I first saw the original F-Zero. Fantastic. I love the N64 version as well, but this blows it out of the water. Developed by Sega, by Nintendo. It still holds up today. You can put this on a PlayStation 4 and I'd buy it in a heartbeat. This is the Japanese version. Right. Secondly, I've always been a huge fan of this series. You'll find out when I go through my top 4. This is Ridge Racer 6 on the Xbox 360, one of the earlier games on the 360. Didn't get that good reviews, but I absolutely adored it. I love the driving mechanics in this game, and the smoothness of the graphics and the controls. Fantastic. It's a really underrated game. Much better than the initial PlayStation 3 Ridge Racer, which I just could not get into. There's something about it that I just didn't like. This was far better. Before the last of my also rants, this is Burnout Revenge on the Xbox 360. I've always been a big Burnout fan. Burnout 3 is probably my favourite. I played that on the Xbox, original Xbox, when that first came out, and I absolutely love that. But this is a close second. I couldn't get into the Paradise series. I just didn't like the open world aspect. So, but this was very good. Right, let's get on to my top 4 racing games today. As I said, probably change tomorrow, but here are the ones at the moment that I remember the best. First one is Stunt Car Racer for the Commodore Amiga. Late 80s, is it 89, 90, something like that. Fantastic game. It's you versus AI opponent, or if you had a serial cable and 2 Amigas, you could link the 2 together and play head to head. There's no split screen. This is early days, early age of 16-bit computing, and this is a fantastic game. You're like racing on top of roller coasters, and you've got the loops and insane jumps. It just screams playability, and for the time the graphics were like jaw-dropping. Excellent controls, and also it was by Jeffrey Crammond, probably one of my favourite game programmers from the old days of the BBC. He did some of my favourite games on the BBC. He did Aviator, Revs, and he also did Sentinel. And that was all classic games, excellent games. Number 2 will be Diddy Kong Racing on the Nintendo 64. I've always been a huge Rare fan, and I've been really enjoying the Rare Replay on the Xbox One. Some absolute classics. I've even been playing the old Attic Attack and Saber Wolf and what was it called? Alien 8 and Night Law, all those, the ones that were on the Spectrum. I played them on the BBC, but yeah, fantastic collection. And Diddy Kong Racing, of course, they couldn't include it because it had, Nintendo Donkey Kong, of course, so there's no way Nintendo would let them get away with it. But fantastic game. I rate it more than Mario Kart on the N64, purely because when it came out in the late 90s, I was working, and I was out of school, so I had no schoolmates to come back and play it, the split screen version of Mario Kart, so I went mainly for single player games, and the single player adventure on Diddy Kong Racing is absolutely brilliant. There's so much variety of cars, planes, boats, and the tracks and the opponents. Fantastic game. I put hours and hours into that game, and I wish Nintendo would re-release it on the Virtual Console. That would be fantastic. Okay, brilliant game. Number 3 is it's a Ridge Racer game, Rage Racer on the PSX. As I said earlier, I've always been a huge fan of the Ridge Racer series. That's the main reason I bought the PSX when it first came out. I got a Japanese import just so I could play Ridge Racer. I remember the first time I played it, my jaw just dropped on the floor. It was that good. But of course, it only had the one track basically, and but at the time it was fantastic. Probably one of the best arcade 3D ports ever. But my favourite Ridge Racer game is Rage Racer because it's a bit darker and it's a bit more, it's polished to a really nice sheen, and I just love how that controls. It was one of the early analog games on the PSX. Fantastic cars, fantastic tracks, and I like how you every time you won the game, I think you got money, and you could either use that to buy new cars or upgrade your car. I think I stuck with basically the same car for most of the game, sorry, and fantastic game. By far my favourite Ridge Racer game. And let's see, my final choice would be Project Gotham 2 on the original Xbox. All 4 were great games, but I have to go for number 2 because that's the first time where the kudos system really clicked for me. And again, the amount of cars, the amount of tracks, the variety, and brilliant. And I love how the controls were not arcadey, but they weren't thin, they were in between, and that is the best Project Gotham for control wise for me. And absolutely brilliant game. I can remember racing through Moscow on that game. Fantastic game. Anyway, this has been my first video response. Sorry it's a bit wonky, I'm sure it is. Hope to do some more soon. Thanks for watching. Cheers.